Hello and welcome to the Coaching State. This is episode 8 in our series of The Subtle Art of Coaching. And today we're going to focus on words that I would encourage you to stop using in your coaching session. Now, I have mentored or facilitated over 1,000 mentor sessions since becoming a facilitator of ACTP level 1 and level 2 coaching programs. I've also done a large amount of MCC mentoring. And one thing that I've really come to recognize is how words matter, very specific words. And I'm just wondering, have you ever had a time when you were coaching or maybe in just a regular conversation, you're in some type of a meeting, just chatting with a friend, and by using one word that maybe wasn't the exact word you wanted, or maybe it was, and in the end, it ends up derailing the conversation. Somebody, it changes the attitude of the person, it changes the mindset or the focus of where they're coming from. Now, in coaching, of course, we as the coach, I like to think of it this way: we set the container for the session. I bring the container that is the coaching session. I bring the coaching space. I bring the coaching mindset. And I bring that and I present that to the client. And the words that I use to set that up are absolutely key. By using some of the wrong words, we set the expectation, we set the mindset of the client in slightly the wrong focus. So I'm going to give you some words I'm going to encourage you not to use in your coaching, especially before you set your session agenda. Some schools call this your coaching contract, some would call it the session focus. Whatever it is that when you say, we're going to use today's session for X, Y, and Z, and the client says yes, I encourage you not to use these words before that. And if you can, kind of stay away from them after that. But it's exceptionally important in those early stages of the session. Now, the big ones that I'm going to really encourage you to stay away from. And notice what happens when you shift away from these. So I hear a lot of coaches, what would you like to talk about today? Talk about sets the wrong mindset. We're not just talking. We're doing coaching, we're exploring, we're creating, we're engaging, we're focusing on something. That's where we're going to go. And I'm going to give you a bunch of alternatives to this language here in a minute. But talk is one of the big ones. It says, I talk on the phone to a friend. I talk on Zoom to, to a colleague. But talking is a different, it has a different meaning. It has a different air to it. Another one, this is a big one. What do you want to work on today? People are overwhelmed with the amount of work that they already have. I stay as far away from the word work as I can. Another big one that I encourage coaches to stay away from, discuss. What would you like to discuss today? A discussion is different than coaching. Discussion is what, again, two friends do, two colleagues. Uh, you're on a plane and you have a quick discussion with someone. That's different. Very similar. Stay away from chat. What would you like to chat about today? That is a very informal style of conversation that, again, doesn't necessarily recognize the mindset of coaching. What would you like to have a conversation about? Again, coaching isn't a conversation. In coaching, I bring the container and the client puts inside the container what they would like to coach on that day. They bring the content, they bring the input, they bring the experience with them that they then we coach around. So just again, stay away. Talk, work on, discuss, chat. Another one I think is very generic and doesn't really hit is topic. What's the topic of our coaching session today? That to me just doesn't feel like a coaching opener. Uh, then there's some other ones. These are a little bit less used, but they're ones I've heard all of these. What would you like to address today? That seems very problem oriented to me. And it often, the times I have heard it, it often takes the client in a different direction than I think it would have gone with other word usage. What would you like to solve today? Coaching isn't always about solving a problem. Often it's about taking advantage of an opportunity. Often it's about growing, it's expanding, it's exploring, etc. What would you like to review today? That has a past focus on it. What would you like to resolve? Also problem oriented, and so is fix. So stay away from, if you can. What would you like to address? What would you like to solve? What would you like to tackle? Tackle is another one I've heard. And although some people who are very kinesthetic and, ooh, tackle, let's tackle something, or even take on. Tackle and take on both have a very similar mindset that comes out. And usually, again, it's confrontational, it's away from motivation. What do you want to tackle today? Now, with the right person, that maybe would be very, very, if I knew somebody I did a collaboration a couple of years ago with a gentleman who was on an NCAA Division I football championship winning team. Now, that might be a good one for him. Hey, what would you like to tackle in our session today? But be very careful because for some people, that doesn't have that same connotation with it. Now, two other words that I tend to stay away from and encourage coaches to stay away from. What would you like to use today's meeting for? I tend to stay away from meeting. People are way over meetinged already. We have, meeting fatigue. So I like to stay away from the word meeting. Just keep it out. I like to use instead session. What would you like to use today's session for? What would you like to use our time together for? How would you like to utilize our collaboration today? How would you like to co-create with our time today? Those are all good ones. Another one I tend to stay away from, although it doesn't tend to come up a lot, are appointments. Thanks for coming to our appointment today. Again, very formal and has the wrong feeling. Like when I go to an appointment, it's a doctor's appointment, it's a dentist appointment. I have an appointment with my chiropractor, for example. It's a different, now, yes, those are all professional meetings, but they're not they're not collaborations, they're not co-creations, they're not the time together. It has a certain connotation to it. And again, remember, words matter. So as we move in, let me give you some words that I really encourage, and then I'm going to give you my even more preferred methodology. So some words I like to use is, what would you like to explore in our session today? What would you like to explore in our time together today? What would you like to focus on today? What would be a great use of our time? What would be the best use of our time? I heard this one a couple years ago. I've used it many times. If the next 45 minutes ended up being the best 45 minutes of your week, what would we do with it? So, play with it. Find some different ways to go about opening that conversation. What would you like to partner on today? Those are all words that we can use to take and set that mindset, set the container that we're doing coaching. It's something different than talking about, working on, discussing, having a conversation about, or chatting about. Now, beyond just using, or even another one, where would you like to grow today? Beyond using those words, I'd like to even give you a better methodology. And what I like to do, if you've watched some of our other videos, we talk about backtracking. Backtracking is pulling out one word, one phrase, or one turn of language, one short part of what the client has said. And I like to seed that back into my question. I embed it into my question. And I go directly to my next question, backtracking the key word, the word that's emphasized, the key that's highlighted, the word that seems to have the most meaning, the most weight to it. For those of you who are familiar with the logical levels, this would be, I'd want to backtrack the highest logical level that I could to continue to open up the conversation. So in our methodologies, what we teach in our level 1 and level 2 program is to start off on a positive note. We don't just ask our clients, how are you doing? How's your day going? How was your week? Because that's a 50-50 coin toss. You get 50% of the time the client will tell you a positive scenario. 50% of the time, the client's going to go into a negative scenario. They're going to tell you what's wrong, what the problem was, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened to me on the way into work this morning. So we start off by asking a positive question. And so I ask a client something like, what was the best part of your week? What did you make happen this week that you're really happy with? What's the most unexpected blessing that's come your way recently? I ask something that leans that 50-50 like to 95-5. 95% of the time, I'm going to get a positive response and 5% a negative response. Now, the reason I want to minimize those negative responses is once the client starts describing that, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened to me, the emotions come up. They have a negative emotion that goes along with it: frustration, stress, anxiety, whatever it happens to be. Now I've got to work with that. I've got to reverse that and get my client into the coaching space. The coaching space is a positive space. So I'm going to invite the client with a positive question to give me the most chance of giving a positive answer. Now, what I do here for, I call it bridging. What I do, bridging with a backtrack, I take and I move from my connecting with the client, gaining rapport, and I move into setting an agenda or setting an outcome or setting a contract for the individual session. So let's say I ask my client a positive question, and my client says, "Oh, I asked something about, where did you make the most progress since we had our last coaching session?" Positive question. And my client goes, "Well, what we explored last time really helped me grow my confidence." I ask a few more questions, I do a little bit more coaching, and then as I'm making that transition out of the opening connection and into setting our outcome, setting our agenda, I might use an opener like this. What's an area of your life that you would like to grow even more in? So I take that word grow that my client used and I bring it forward and I use that as my agenda question to, again, open up into that explore, create, engage, grow type of a mindset of what coaching is. I'm not talking the grow methodology here, just that the client used the word grow and the client just used it. So they're really comfortable with that word. Let's say, my clients, "Oh, that really helped me grow my confidence." And okay, what would you like to discuss in our session today? See how much of a, like, granted, my tonality was the big letdown there, but it just doesn't have that flow. So my client says, "Well, that really helped me grow my confidence. What's another area of your life you'd love to grow your confidence in?" Now that's a little narrowing, but we can always then break it back out open. I also had listened to a mentor session recently where the client mentioned something in their answer to the positive question about expanding. And so a question I would encourage here, again, taking the expand and moving it forward, what is something you would like to expand on that would be of great value for you? So I backtrack the word that they've used. And you can use a lot of different words here. Just listen, as long as it seemed to be a positive word for your client and you can somehow craft it into that agenda setting question. I also heard a session recently where I was mentoring on, and the client said, I was really drawn to. And so a coaching, again, an agenda setting question could be, where is your attention being drawn now that we could focus on for today? And so again, using their word, pulling it forward just a few moments, it allows the client to really settle in. Oh, wow, this coach is with me. They're using my words. People use words because they mean something. They have a very specific meaning. And as you start to do this more and more in many scenarios of coaching, all the way through a whole coaching session, you'll start to really get in the flow with the client. You'll get moving more forward with the client. I believe that staying away from the words that we discussed early on here, talk, work on, discuss, chat, have a conversation on, address, solve, etc., it opens up the doors for your client to come in and move into the thinking of coaching. It moves them into the container so they can start populating that container with their content, being really relaxed and engaged in the session because you're using words that set that space up. It sets the tone for the whole coaching. So, what are your favorite ways to open a session? And what are your favorite words that you like to use to move into that outcome, into the agenda, into the topic, into the focus for the session? Drop those down in the comments below. Also, if you've got questions, please let us know in the comments below. We'd be happy to answer those for you. Please like this video if you like it, share it with some friends, subscribe if you want to keep receiving these, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Coaching State, the subtle art of coaching. Thank you for your attention.